Welcome to the program, everybody. It's the Livin Life and Style daily travel update for May 1st. It's May Day. It's May Day, everybody. The very first day of May. Welcome to the program. Like I said, Livin Life and Style daily travel update for May 1st, 2025. Brought to you by Livin Life and Style Travel. You can find them on the web right there at Livin Life and Style. Well, maybe it's coming up. There you go. At livinlifeandstyle.com. Elevate your travel. That's what I'm talking about. That's what the daily update's about. It's giving you guys tips on how to elevate your travel. Livin Life and Style daily travel update, like I said, is brought to you by Livin Life and Style Travel. You can reach them at 816-744-1405. That's 816-744-1405. Or when you go to the page, right there behind my logo on the screen is a contact us button. You can hit that button, send me an email, and I will be more than happy to help you with any of your travel needs, whether it's personal, leisure, vacation travel, business travel, group travel, or if you're interested in maybe some big events going on in your hometown or even around the country. I can help you with all of those aspects of travel. So what is going on today? Well, we got a lot of talk today about rules, changes in rules, what is and is not allowed on certain cruise lines. Apparently two of the big cruise lines are going to be quietly ending cruise traditions. We'll touch on that. And then finally, this is something that, you run into as parents when you're trying to decide on the cruise line you want to go, that you want to travel on. It's a cruise heavy program today, obviously. But when you go on a cruise, what cruise line do you choose? Especially if you're, you have a family, you have kids, you got cruise lines like Royal Caribbean and Carnival. They really cater to families. They have all the water slides. Norwegian's this way as well. They have all the water slides and all the kids' activities on board. But what about some of those higher end, more luxury, that seem to be more adult oriented cruise lines? How would, because only Virgin Voyages is adults only, where they don't allow kids. So you can take kids on a princess cruise. You can take kids on a celebrity cruise. You could take kids on Holland America. A lot of these cruise lines that are designed, or really not, I shouldn't say designed for, but they definitely are targeting an older client base. So how do the kids do on such a cruise line? We'll have an article about that. So we're going to get started with the rules, the rule crackdowns. Royal Caribbean and Norwegian. Let's see if I can bring up the screen. Here we go. Royal Caribbean and Norwegian. There we go. There it is. Royal Caribbean and Norwegian cruisers demand crackdown on key rules. Cruisers want the cruise lines to do more to curb a frustrating passenger behavior. Frustrating passenger behavior. This is from Alicia Dos Santos. Alicia, appreciate the article. Alicia writes, if you're vacationing on a cruise ship, it's vital to understand the essentials of cruise etiquette and to do your best to follow these rules. Being mindful of polite cruise behavior is not just for elitist passengers. When everyone on board is careful not to become a rude cruiser, it ensures a better cruise experience for everyone. Once again, I kind of touched on this yesterday, people. No, it wasn't yesterday. Maybe it was Tuesday. Manners. Like just basic manners will go a long way in meeting all of these etiquette rules, so to speak. While some etiquette rules are unwritten, like being polite to crew members and not cutting in line, see, manners, others are clearly spelled out in writing within cruise lines' guest conduct policies. One of the worst cruise etiquette offenses is one that cruise lines outlaw in writing, but it continues to happen every day without fail on ships across the sea. Quote, pool deck chairs are only available on a first come, first served basis and cannot be reserved, Royal Caribbean underscores on its website. They continue, we want to ensure that all guests have a great time at the pool. If a pool chair is left unattended for more than 30 minutes with no signs of any guests returning, to our crew will remove any belongings and place them in the lost and found, end quote. Norwegian Cruise Line, Carnival, and other lines also prohibit passengers from reserving pool chairs. But whether cruise lines are doing enough to enforce rules against chair hogging is something that passengers often question. Oh man, that looks just like the pool that we were on at Harmony of the Seas. We spent a lot of time right here in this pool in this corner. If you can see see that right there in that corner? I mean, matter of fact, that could be us. I don't think it's us, but it could be us because we spent a lot of time right here in this corner. Royal Caribbean passengers sound the alarm on chair hogging. Recently, a Royal Caribbean passenger shared a photo in a fan community for the cruise line on Reddit that showed every pool deck chair on Royal Caribbean's Utopia of the Seas reserved, mostly with towels, at 8:30 a.m. on a sea day. The photo prompted more than 300 comments about the common and controversial cruise package or practice. Many cruisers encouraged the passengers who posted the photo not to feel bad about moving towels and sitting down. Some also expressed their frustration with Royal Caribbean for not being diligent about enforcing its 30-minute policy on unattended belongings left on pool chairs. Other cruisers suggested that cruise lines could do more to prevent chair hogging in the first place, instead of just sometimes reacting when it happens. Quote, they really need to deploy staff at the pools early in the morning, a few on each side of the pool who can tell people as soon as they put stuff down and start to walk away that they can't do that. It would go a long way to start to curb the behavior. People will ignore signs. They would be way less inclined to ignore a person. End quote. Logical Shelter 925 pointed out. Norwegian Cruise Line steps up enforcement of pool chair policy. Cruisers who sail with Norwegian Cruise Lines have recently shared better news about the chair hogging dilemma. Quote, on Escape last week, they were marketing unoccupied chairs and pulling towels. They were marking unoccupied chairs and pulling towels and personal effects. Chairs were full at 9 a.m., but around 10 onwards, they were starting to clear off chairs. End quote, Ancillary Cheese wrote in the NCL community on Reddit. I honestly didn't think that they had the commitment to do it. Glad they are trying to enforce the rules, end quote. In the thread, other cruisers noted that this hasn't always been the case, and they hope the cruise line's efforts to combat chair hogging would continue. Quote, good. It was ridiculous on Encore at the end of February. People would leave their items for 2 to 3 hours until they would actually show up, end quote. I think that's supposed to be Divine Bunny. Divin3 Bunny wrote. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be Divine, but whatever. People make weird names. To many cruisers, chair hogging is the worst of cruise etiquette offenses. Quote, glad to see this. Chair hogging and lack of enforcement is the only thing that gets me upset about cruising, end quote. Lynn's mama 123 commented. So there you go. Thank you, Alicia. We appreciate the article. I'm glad to hear that they're cracking down on chair hogging. Chair hogging's it's just rude. It's like, if you're going to be there, be there. If you're not going to be there, don't be there. I do question though sometimes about like, okay, if you're going to get rid of the chair hogging, like if I go get in the pool and I put my stuff on a chair and I'm like away from my chair, but I'm in the pool, how are you going to know that I'm not utilizing the chair. But at the very beginning of the day and there's nobody in the pool and people just start reserving chairs, yeah, that's completely ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. I hope they do a good job of cracking down on it. So more in the rules department, especially as it relates to Norwegian Cruise Lines and Royal Caribbean. Norwegian Cruise Line bans multiple items that Royal Caribbean allows. Well, we're traveling on Royal Caribbean, so I won't have to worry about the things that, Norwegian doesn't allow. But it's always interesting to find these things out. And, all the cruise lines are different, so you kind of have to pay attention to that stuff. So, who is this from? This is on Yahoo, from Yahoo Life. Once again, Alicia Dos Santos. Look at her. She's getting her stuff out there everywhere. So, to keep both passengers and crew members safe while at sea, this is Alicia writing. Each major cruise line has a long list of items that passengers are prohibited from bringing aboard its ships. As you'd probably expect, firearms, weapons, explosives, and illegal drugs top the lists. Cruise lines also ban any items that could start a fire, like candles, flammable substances, or any items that contain a heating element like irons or coffee makers. Hair dryers, styling tools like curling irons, and personal grooming devices are the only exceptions to this rule. Passengers are also prohibited from bringing alcohol on board, with one key exception. Most cruise lines allow their passengers to bring at least one bottle of wine or champagne along on their sailing. This exception stems from a tradition of transatlantic ocean liner voyages when passengers would toast to the beginning of a journey with a glass of champagne. But while cruise lines are prohibited, while cruise lines prohibited items lists mostly cover the same type of items and make similar exceptions, each one has a few differences. So if you've only sailed on Royal Caribbean cruise ships, for example, and decide to try out Norwegian Cruise Line, it's important to be aware of certain items that Norwegian bans that other lines may allow. So Norwegian Cruise Line bans walkie-talkies and fans. What, fans? Oh man, that's kind of disappointing. Royal Caribbean and Norwegian Cruise Line both strictly prohibit ham radios or other transmitting devices because they could potentially interfere with the ship's onboard communication systems. But while Royal Caribbean makes an exception for walkie-talkies, the two-way radios that some cruisers like to use for onboard personal communications, Norwegian Cruise Line specifically spells out that walkie-talkies of any kind are not allowed on board its ships. I wonder if they used to allow the old Nextel telephones. Remember those? You had the Nextel telephone, and it would be like you'd like have the little button, and you could do walkie-talkie on your cell phone. No, am I the only one? I'm kind of old, so maybe it's just me. Norwegian Cruise Line also specifies that emergency position indicating radio beacons, satellite phones, transformers, lasers, and laser pointers, and any form of radio, telephone, signal jamming equipment are not permitted. And who's bringing all this stuff on a cruise? That's what I want to know. The cruise line also bans any type of multifunctional device developed for interaction with access control systems on board the ship. Yeah, okay. I guess apparently Norwegian has like a serious issue with hackers getting on their ship or something. And like, I don't know. That's a lot of high tech stuff. I'm not interested in dragging on board a cruise ship myself, but to each his own, I guess. But not as far as Norwegian's concerned. If that's your thing to bring all that crap on board, Norwegian's not going to allow it. In addition to walkie-talkies, fans are another item that Norwegian Cruise Line bans that some passengers would like to bring on Royal Caribbean cruises. Norwegian does, however, make an exception for small electrical or battery-operated fans, but advises passengers that these fans are subject to confiscation by the ship's security team for inspection and approval. I just gotta be honest, that kind of sucks. Like just a little bitty fan, blow a little bitty crew. I mean, I haven't had a need for one. When I'm on a cruise, I mean, we've never brought one. Maybe like one of the ones that's like on a spray bottle for when you're on the pool deck. But I mean, it's like on one side, it's like I don't ever need one, but on the other side, it's like it seems like excessive to ban it. But okay, moving on. Norwegian Cruise Lines prohibits door decorations. Like, suck the fun out of it, bro. Decorating cruise ship cabin doors is a fun tradition that many cruisers enjoy participating in while sailing on Royal Caribbean, Carnival, Disney, and other cruise lines. Even Virgin Voyages, you can decorate your door. Cruise passengers get very creative with door decorations, often using magnets to highlight things they're celebrating or the crew on the cruise, or add flair with a theme for the vacation. Along with adding a little extra fun and personality to the voyage, cabin door decorations can help make it easier for passengers to find their staterooms in a long hallway of doors that all look the same. While door decorations seem like harmless cruise fun, they can pose a fire hazard in some cases. Because of this, Carnival Cruise Line offers door decorations guidelines for its passengers, which stipulate that decorations must be made of fire retardant materials. Fair enough. Norwegian Cruise Line, however, just decided to take things a step further and just said, nope, all door decorations to, add all door decorations to its prohibited items list. Just nope, you can't have any of them. We're not even going to, we're not even going to hash it out for you. Just no, just don't. For everyone's safety, quote, for everyone's safety, Norwegian Cruise Lines does not allow any type of door decoration, including paper or magnetic ones, due to their flammable nature. Thank you for understanding and cooperation with our safety policy, end quote, the cruise line states on its website. Norwegian, that's kind of being a party pooper. I got to be honest. It's kind of being a party pooper. Like, seriously? At the same time, they have open bar. So, they have open bar. So maybe it balances out, right? Maybe that balances out. I don't know. It's disappointing though, and you can't, they kind of suck some of the fun out of the room. Okay. And more, I don't want to call this negative news, but it's it's not necessarily positive news either. Carnival and Royal Caribbean are quietly ending cruise traditions. Both cruise lines have stopped offering multiple areas that used to be a key part of cruising. This comes from Daniel Klein from yesterday. Daniel writes, because booking a cruise can cost thousands of dollars, cruise lines try to deliver a consistent experience. They would not want customers to get on board and have a trip that doesn't meet their expectations. This doesn't mean changes are not made. The major cruise lines try to innovate and evolve their offerings to make things better in some cases, however, adding something new means taking something away. When that happens, it's a careful choice. And even on new ships, it's not often that multiple expected areas disappear. You might see a change in food offerings or an evolution of a popular space like the adult pool or the water park, but major changes tend to be very rare. That does not mean that cruise lines, including Royal Caribbean and Carnival, don't remove less popular features from their ships. In some cases, changing customer needs have made certain areas irrelevant. Ooh. Colby Jack Pub Burger at Culver's. Those are really good if you haven't had one. I digress. In other cases, there are simply better uses for the space. Any change, though, angers a certain percentage of passengers. In many ways, it's like Coca-Cola or Pepsi dropping a soda flavor that has dimmed in popularity. Few people might like Tab or Peach Pepsi. Ugh. Few people might like Tab or Peach Pepsi, but to a small percentage of people, those are the best flavors and should be left untouchable. You may not have noticed that 3 once popular cruise ship areas have largely disappeared, but the people who love those spaces certainly have. So, what are they? Well, first, libraries and chapels have been left off cruise ships. Most cruise ships have traditionally had a library. The spaces were actually filled with books, or at least had a few shelves of books that people could borrow. It was a tradition to take a book and leave a book. Many newer ships, however, have dropped this space. That was at least partly because during the pandemic, the idea of people leaving books became unsanitary. which is ridiculous. The books would have been fine. You could have left the book. It would have been okay. It wouldn't have done anything. But people were crazy during the pandemic. And what are you going to do? They still had the library, and it even had, well, we'll get onto it, but down below, the internet cafe, which is apparently also going away in many cases. And it was all mixed in with a game room on Harmony of the Seas last summer. So maybe they're not all going away, but I would expect that as things develop, they will go, they will probably go the way of the dodo bird as well. Books were actually removed from libraries, which then became just sort of empty spaces. Many ships have repurposed those areas into game rooms. That's really what ours was more of a game room. I think they had some bookshelves in there, and they had some computers in there as well. And on newer ships, libraries are generally not being offered. You can blame COVID, but technology also plays a role. It's possible to download books on your phone and other devices, which has cut the demand for print books roughly in half. In addition to no longer offering libraries, newer cruise ships are not being built with chapels. That was a decision made by both cruise lines out of demand. Even though the chapel spaces had devout fans, they simply weren't being used enough. Many ships still have passenger-led services and sometimes more formal events on major holidays. Royal and Carnival both drop internet cafes. Until fairly recently, both Carnival and Royal Caribbean offered dedicated internet cafes on their ships. These weren't actually cafes, as there was no coffee, but they were dedicated spaces with computer terminals that passengers could use to pay for internet service. Before every major cruise line adopted Elon Musk's Starlink internet service, onboard connectivity was not great. Many people would not travel with devices and might buy an hour or two at the cafe to check email and check in on what's going on at home. Improved onboard internet and the fact that pretty much everyone has a smartphone has made internet cafes much less relevant. Even if someone does not bring a laptop or a tablet, they can still do most things on their phones. And yeah, I've like I said, we saw internet cafe computers in the game room on Harmony of the Seas last summer. I don't think I saw anybody use one. And there were a lot of people in there playing board games and such, but nobody was using the internet computers on there. So I can see why those would be going away. In which, that made dedicating an onboard space to internet connection somewhat of a waste. In addition, with fewer people wanting to do things like print boarding passes, the space used for the cafes could be better used for other things. That's true. I mean, that's just patently true. These changes were not made lightly, but adding new dining venues, bars, and experiences like escape rooms requires space. That means spaces that were once standard are now being slowly relegated to history. Excellent. Well, that's not a bad thing. I mean, the experience is going to, it's going to evolve over time. That's just how things go, honestly. All right, now, and we're going to get done early today. Oh my goodness. I always do 4 shows. I didn't expect me to get through it this quickly. Let's see how long this one lasts. But I got a feeling it's not going to take too long to get through this. This is from thestreet.com and Matthew Frankel. Why my kids liked Celebrity more than Carnival and Royal. I was pleasantly surprised how enjoyable my 2 young children found the luxury cruise line. This is from a few days ago on April 27th. Matthew writes, my wife and I recently decided to book a short 3-night cruise on Celebrity Silhouette over Easter weekend on the tail end of my kids' spring break. I'm not sure who we were more nervous about, my parents, who joined us for their first cruise ever, or my 2 children, ages 9 and 7, who were taking their first Celebrity cruise. After all, the median age on a Celebrity ship is typically far closer to my parents' ages than my kids, and we've read reviews that called Celebrity a much less kid-friendly cruise line than Carnival and Royal Caribbean, which we've sailed many times as a family. I'm pretty sure it is a much less kid-friendly cruise line. It doesn't mean you won't enjoy it or your kids won't enjoy it. That's what I'm finding interesting. because my brother, he's a big fan of Celebrity Cruise Lines. He's worked on cruise ships, and spent a lot of time cruising in his life, and he's a big fan of Celebrity Cruises. And he took his kids, and his kids seem to love it. So, to put it mildly, we didn't agree with any negative reviews. In fact, both of my kids like Celebrity better than either of those other cruise lines. Those other cruise lines. I guess he means Royal and Carnival. Better than either of those cruise lines in several different ways. To be fair, there's a lot that my kids liked better on Carnival and Royal Caribbean. For example, they were a bit disappointed when we boarded the ship and they discovered there wasn't a water slide or an arcade. They're also a big fan of candy stores that are commonly found on Carnival and Royal Caribbean ships. And while some of Celebrity ships have them, Celebrity Silhouette does not. However, they quickly got over all of those things, or these things. So why my kids like Celebrity so much? For one, my kids loved the general lack of crowds on the ship compared to the other two family-friendly cruise lines. As an example, when we boarded around noon, we went straight to the pool. The shallower of the two main pools had about 10 children in it, and didn't feel crowded whatsoever. On the other hand, it's common for Carnival pools to feel overwhelmingly packed, especially on embarkation day. There's also the Kids Club, which Celebrity calls Camp at Sea. Don't get me wrong, they thoroughly enjoy Adventure Ocean on Royal Caribbean ships and Camp Ocean on Carnival. But there can be a lot of kids. We sailed on Wonder of the Seas in December, and there were hundreds of children in Adventure Ocean at certain times. There were certainly more kids on our sailing than you'd typically find on Caribbean or on Celebrity. After all, we sailed over Easter weekend when many schools, including ours, were still on spring break. But even with the elevated number of children, there were a total of 19 in my kids' group. Not at the camp at that not at the camp at the same time. 19 total kids registered for their age group. This meant it was easier to make new friends, and in my 7-year-old son's case, much less competition for the 4 Xbox setups that they had. Also, they enjoyed some of the unique programming for kids. While a silent disco on the pool deck has become a cruising staple, Celebrity's Camp at Sea offered one just for the kids in the camp. On Easter Sunday, the camp hosted an egg hunt on the ship's wonderful lawn club on the top of the ship. Celebrity Cruises is more kid friendly than you might think, and this is basically what my brother told me as well. Celebrity has a reputation for being a cruise line that caters to adults, and for good reason. Even on a spring break week, there were just a few dozen kids on board, as opposed to literally thousands on some Royal Caribbean ships. And as mentioned, some of the kid-targeted amenities like splash pads and arcades just aren't there. However, there's a lot to like about Celebrity for a family vacation. We were admittedly skeptical heading into the trip, but as we were getting ready to head home afterwards, my 9-year-old said that Camp at Sea was her new favorite kids club on a cruise ship. That's high praise. She's been on over a dozen ships from 4 other cruise lines. So there you go. If you're looking for a little bit of an upgraded experience from Royal or Celebrity, you can, or Royal or Carnival, you can find that on Celebrity, and the kid offerings on that ship or on Celebrity ships is not it's kind of understated, but it's not, just because it's understated doesn't mean it's not quality. And from all accounts that I've heard about the kids programs on Celebrity, they are top notch. My niece and nephew, from all reports, had a fabulous time when they went on a Mediterranean cruise with their parents on Celebrity. And and they're coming with us on our signature one cruise in June. So I'll just have to interview them in person and find out which one they liked better when it's all said and done. So yeah, check out Celebrity. I really want to check out Celebrity Cruises. I have not had a chance yet to do so, and I'm really looking forward to the opportunity. So in due time. in due time, we will get on a celebrity cruise. All right. Like I said, it's a little short today. I didn't expect to get through those stories that fast, but sometimes that's how it goes. And it just gives me time to work on some other things. So that's what I'm going to do. I hope you have a great day. Appreciate you joining me for the Livin Life and Style daily travel update here for May 1st, 2025. I hope you all have a wonderful day out there. Hey, please be sure to like, share, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button so you know when we go live, because we go live Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Most weekdays. There are occasional weekdays when I won't make it happen, particularly like next Friday, because I will be helping out my son's band with I'll be helping out my son's band at a big band celebration because his band won the competition that they went to, and it was the first competition they had ever participated in. So I'm excited for them, and they're going to have a bash, and they need people to help keep an eye on all of the band guys to make sure that they aren't getting too rowdy. So I will be doing that next Friday. But I will be here tomorrow. I will be here tomorrow at 11 a.m. So if you have any travel issues, have any travel questions, you have just anything related to travel, and you want to know more information, give Livin Life and Style Travel a call at 816-744-1405. That's 816-744-1405. You can also reach me on the web at livinlifeandstyle.com. Okay. Well, that about does it for me today. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you all tomorrow at 11 a.m. Be good out there, everybody.